Hi, welcome to Explained. If we haven't met, my name is Louis van Niekerk, and you're watching the third of a three-part series on compounding interest. In the first, we explained the nature of compounding interest and why Albert Einstein called it the eighth wonder of the world. In the second, we used an example of Jack and Jill buying a house to apply some of that knowledge and show you how you can be smarter about not paying compounding interest but rather earning it. In this video, we'll take that example further. We're going to have Jack and Jill each buying a car, but we'll have a friend Lee also buying a car. And we're effectively going to show you how to create wealth rather than allow financial institutions to create wealth through you. So each one of them have $1,000 that they can spend. Now, they can decide to buy a very expensive vehicle and pay it off over 60 months. Or for the same $1,000, they can buy a less expensive vehicle and pay it off over a lesser term, say 36 months or 3 years. Now in our example, Jack is a flashy guy. He wants the best vehicle that he can afford with his $1,000, so he takes it over 60 months. And that translates for Jack to a vehicle of $58,500, of which he has to pay a 10% deposit, and he then borrows $52,650. Jill, on the other hand, decides no, she's going to be a little bit more conservative. She only buys a vehicle of the value of $37,000. She pays a 10% deposit and she borrows $33,300, and Lee does the same. Now we go into 60 months. Jack pays his $1,000 every month, and after the end of the 5 years, he's paid off the vehicle. But the vehicle has now lost value. And for the sake of ease, we'll assume that the vehicle has lost 50% of its value. So Jack now owns a vehicle to the value of $29,000 odd. Okay? Jill, on the other hand, owns a vehicle of only $18,500, and so does Lee. But Jill did something smart, and so did Lee. When she finished after 3 years, she said to herself, look, my vehicle is still reasonably new. Jack's is still paying off on his. Why don't I continue to pay $1,000 a month for the next 2 years? But instead of now paying it back to someone, I'm putting it in a savings account. And I'm earning interest with compounding effect, as we've explained. And so that is what Jill did. So in addition to her $18,500 that her vehicle is worth, she saved up $42,000. Quite a number. Okay, but it doesn't stop there, because they now have to make a new decision. They've paid back their vehicles, they've sold their vehicles, they each have a lump of cash. Jack has $29,000, Jill and Lee has $42,000 each. So here is where Jill and Lee starts to do things a little bit different. Jill decides that she can still afford $1,000, so can Jack and Lee, but she wants to upgrade a little bit. So she's going to buy the same vehicle that Jack had bought 5 years prior. Okay, and she'll use the same recipe. She'll pay it off with her deposit. This time, it only takes 18 months. And then she can start saving again. Lee, on the other hand, decides to buy the same vehicle. Okay, to not upgrade to the luxury German vehicle, but to buy the same vehicle that she had. The net effect, after another 60 months, is Jack, with his more expensive car that is now worth 50%, now has $41,000 in his pocket. Jill has $68,000 in her pocket, and Lee has $78,000 in her pocket. And this is where the punchline comes in. After 10 years, the three of them has to buy vehicles again. Jack has $47,000 that he can start with, or $41,000 that he can start with. So he can buy a $94,000 vehicle, still with his $1,000 premium, because his deposit allows him that. Jill, on the other hand, can buy a vehicle of $82,000 and pay it off over 15 months and start saving again. And Lee can buy the vehicle cash. She can buy a $78,000 vehicle cash. So yeah, Jill has to borrow $13,000 from that scenario, whereas Jack has to borrow $53,000. And after that term, the net asset value is quite astonishing. Jack, with his 50% value of his vehicle, has $47,000 in his pocket. Jill has just short of $80,000 in her pocket, and Lee has about $100,000 in her pocket. So Lee is worth double what Jack is worth. Now, at what cost? She didn't drive the fancy vehicle for a good 10 years. She had to have the discipline to save when her vehicle was paid off. Now, what is this video and the whole series trying to explain to you? Financial freedom is about delayed gratification. If you apply the delayed gratification, you will have massive satisfaction at the end of your life, in the second half of your life, the period of your life where things start to shift a bit toward more enjoyment as opposed to having to work so hard to earn everything. And if you've managed to be smart and you've managed to let compounding interest work for you, it snowballs in your favor. If, however, you kept upgrading to the maximum of what you can afford. Remember, in this example, Jack just stuck to his $1,000 a month premium. But if you kept maxing out what you can afford, in other words, when you buy a vehicle, you go for the maximum term for the maximum value. When you buy a house, you go for the maximum premium, and you never leave space for a period of 12 months or 24 months or even 36 months where the same installment value doesn't go to the bank, but is saved. You won't get ahead. And through this example, I can show you that through an ordinary salary, you can create wealth. And if you combine the second video in my series, where I've shown you that I think it was Jill who could buy a second property with the money that she saved. Now just think another 10 years hence, and Jill has bought a third property off a salary. Okay, so I hope that through this series I've given you some motivation, particularly if you're young, to not go out and buy the flashy car. I know it's tempting, and I know that's what we all want the Joneses to see, but it is not going to give you what you want. If ultimately in your life you want financial freedom, you have to apply the disciplines and be smart about it, because the numbers, the eighth wonder of the world, works in your favor. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give us a thumbs up. This channel is here to help and explain stuff to you which perhaps otherwise would have been a bit more complex. My name is Louis van Niekerk, and I hope that was properly explained.